Beatrice was a maid in the Rossi mansion, and to survive there, you had to be invisible. At 260 pounds, being invisible was something she could never quite manage. Her uniform pulled tight across her shoulders, the apron strings cut into her waist, and her thighs chafed as she rushed down the long marble halls of the Chicago estate, always a little out of breath. She was 28, quiet, and painfully aware of every stare, every bead of sweat on her forehead as she hauled laundry up the grand staircase. But she had one advantage: people like Victoria Kensington didn't see her as a person. They saw furniture. Victoria was Leo Rossi's new fiancée, a socialite with a waist like a diamond choker, platinum hair, and eyes as cold as the bottom of the Chicago River. She was moving into the estate, bringing her silk luggage and her quiet, venomous cruelty with her. Leo Rossi wasn't a man you looked in the eye. As head of the Rossi syndicate, his business was blood, territory, and silence, a towering, broad-shouldered man whose presence alone seemed to empty a room of air. But underneath all of it, one piece of humanity remained: his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily was frail and quiet, still shattered by the car bombing that had killed her mother 2 years earlier. She barely spoke, communicating mostly through crayon drawings, hiding behind the heavy curtains of the estate. Beatrice loved her fiercely. Being soft and warm, Beatrice was the person Lily gravitated to, burying her face against her side whenever the world got too loud. Beatrice would sneak her warm shortbread from the kitchen, sit with her in the pantry, read her stories while the family's darker business happened behind closed doors. Victoria's arrival broke that fragile peace. "Watch where you're going, you massive cow," Victoria hissed one afternoon, brushing off her blazer as if Beatrice's presence had dirted it. "I don't understand why Leo keeps someone of your proportions on staff. It's offensive to look at." "I apologize, Miss Kensington," Beatrice murmured, pulling her arms around herself, trying to look smaller. Victoria's attention snapped to the doorway, where Lily stood clutching a stuffed rabbit. "And you," she snapped, voice dropping. "Stop staring at me with those pathetic eyes. Your father isn't here to coddle you." Lily flinched back into the shadows. Beatrice's heart twisted, but she stayed frozen. If she lost this job, she had nothing, and if she crossed Victoria, she might end up in the trunk of a car. Whenever Leo was home, Victoria played the perfect doting stepmother, stroking Lily's hair while her nails dug into the girl's scalp, smiling brightly at Leo. Exhausted from running an empire and desperate for someone to mother his broken daughter, Leo saw exactly what he wanted to see. "Take care of my girls, Beatrice," he'd told her 2 days before everything fell apart, adjusting his coat in the foyer. "I'm relying on you to watch Lily." "Always, Mr. Rossi," she promised. She had no idea how hard that promise was about to be tested. The nightmare started on a Tuesday. Leo was called to Miami for a sit-down, expected back in 48 hours. His enforcer Mateo went with him, leaving the house guarded only by low-level muscle who stayed outside. The moment his car disappeared down the driveway, Victoria dismissed the housekeeper, the chef, and the other maids, keeping only Beatrice. "Someone has to scrub the baseboards," Victoria said, sipping a martini at 10 in the morning. "The exercise will do you good." By noon, Victoria's real self was on full display. Beatrice was on her knees scrubbing the dining room floor when she heard a crack from the next room, followed by a whimper. She rushed in to find Victoria standing over Lily, tearing her sketchbook in half, the one thing Lily used to process her grief, letting the pages flutter to the floor. "I told you to clean up your mess," Victoria hissed, grabbing Lily's arm hard enough to whiten her knuckles. "You're a spoiled little brat. When I marry your father, you're going to boarding school in Switzerland. You'll never see him again." "No. Lily cried. Something in Beatrice cracked. She stepped into the doorway. Miss Kensington, please, she's just a child. I'll clean up the crayons. Victoria rounded on her, smaller and lighter but somehow towering with malice. Did I speak to you, you fat pig? She jabbed a nail into Beatrice's chest. You're the help. You're nothing. Interrupt me again and I'll tell Leo you were stealing from the safe. You know what happens to thieves in this family. Get back to the floor. Beatrice looked down at Lily, sobbing on the rug, and swallowed her pride. I'm sorry. I'll go back to work. Pathetic, Victoria scoffed. Lily, go to your room. No lunch. Make a sound and I'll lock you in the cellar. Beatrice worked the rest of the day in silence, mind racing. Once Victoria retreated upstairs with a bottle of wine, Beatrice slipped into the kitchen, prepared a small plate of apples, cheese, and bread, and carried it up to Lily's room. She found the girl curled in the closet, shaking, and climbed in beside her, pulling her into her lap. I brought you food. You need to eat. She hates me, Lily whispered. She says Daddy hates me too. That he wishes I died with Mommy. That's a lie, Beatrice said. Your daddy loves you more than his own life. He just doesn't see what she really is. Are you going to leave me? Never. The door slammed open. Victoria stood there swaying, wine glass in hand, face twisted with rage. I knew it. I told you no food. Are you deaf, you oversized whale? Beatrice stood, putting herself between Victoria and the child. She was hungry, Miss Kensington. It's just a snack. Victoria's hand cracked across her face, the diamond ring slicing her cheek open. Blood welled instantly. Before Beatrice could recover, Victoria hauled Lily out by the hair, dragging the screaming child toward the stairs. Stop, please. Beatrice lunged, tripped on the rug, and hit the floor hard. You want to cuddle her? Fine, let's see how she likes the dark. Victoria dragged Lily down the marble staircase and into the kitchen, wrenching open the heavy iron cellar door. Lily, already struggling with severe stress-triggered asthma, was coughing and gasping. She can't breathe. Beatrice yelled, chasing them down. Victoria shoved Lily down the first steps. Beatrice threw herself at the door, but Victoria slammed it shut on Beatrice's fingers before she could stop it, then bolted it. There, Victoria said, smoothing her blazer. She stays until morning. Try to unlock it or call the guards and I'll tell Leo you attacked me. Look at you, bleeding, unstable. Who's he going to believe, his future wife, or a fat maid who can't tie her own shoes without sweating? You're fired. Pack your things. Victoria walked off toward the living room for another drink. Beatrice pressed her ear to the door. Through the insulation she could hear Lily, not crying anymore, but wheezing, the high thin sound of an asthma attack. Her inhaler was upstairs. The only key was in Victoria's pocket, and the outside guards were under strict orders not to enter unless called. Beatrice looked at her bleeding hand, then at her reflection in the steel fridge, a frightened, overweight woman who'd spent her whole life shrinking. Not tonight. She ran. Up the main stairs, straight for the one room in the house that was forbidden to everyone, Leo's private office. The door was locked. She backed up and threw her whole body into it. The frame splintered but held. She hit it again, screamed, and slammed her shoulder in once more. The lock gave, and she stumbled inside. She went straight for the desk, yanked open the top drawer, and found the emergency burner phone reserved for syndicate emergencies only, misuse punishable by death. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped it. She pressed the single button. "Speak," Leo's voice rumbled through street noise and shouting. "Mr. Rossi, it's Beatrice, the maid." Silence. "You have to come back." She locked Lily in the cellar. "Lily's having an asthma attack. Victoria won't give me the key. She fired me, she hurt me, I don't care, you have to save Lily." The background noise vanished. "Are you with my daughter right now?" "I'm locked out. I couldn't stop her. She's suffocating down there." "Get away from the office," Leo commanded. "Go back to the kitchen. Wait by the cellar door. You're in Miami. Do as I say." The line went dead. Beatrice ran back down, pressing herself against the cellar door. "Lily, hold on, baby, I'm here." No wheezing. No sound at all. She was about to storm the living room and tear the key from Victoria's hands herself when the whole front of the house shook, a crash from the foyer, boots on marble. Victoria's laughter cut off. "What is the meaning of," then a scream. Beatrice looked out to see the front doors kicked off their hinges. Leo stood there flanked by 4 armed men. He hadn't been in Miami. The meeting had ended early. He'd been 20 minutes away. He looked at Victoria once, then began walking toward her, unbuttoning his jacket, saying nothing at all. The silence was absolute. Leo didn't run, he stalked, Matteo at his side, hand resting on his holster. Victoria backed against the wall, her wine glass shattering at her feet, all her arrogance drained into pure terror. "Leo, darling, I thought you were in Miami." He didn't look at her. His eyes swept the wrecked dining room, the torn sketchbook pages, and finally landed on Beatrice, bloodied, bruised, her uniform torn. "The wine cellar," Beatrice said, pointing. "She doesn't have her inhaler. She's stopped making noise." Leo's jaw tightened. He held out his palm to Victoria. "The key." "Leo, you don't understand, she was disrespecting me, this insolent maid attacked me." "The key." When she hesitated, Matteo slammed her against the wall and pulled the ring from her pocket himself, tossing it to Leo. Leo tore into the kitchen, shoved the key into the cellar lock, and ripped the door open hard enough to crack the wall. Beatrice flicked on the light behind him. At the bottom of the stairs, Lily lay curled and motionless, her lips tinged blue. "Lily." Leo dropped to his knees, gathering her up. "Breathe for Papa." Beatrice knelt beside them despite the pain in her knees. "She has a pulse, it's weak. Lay her flat, tip her head back, we need her airway open." Leo obeyed instantly. Matteo arrived with the inhaler, Beatrice took it, had Leo hold Lily's jaw open, and pumped it twice, pressing gently on her chest. For 3 unbearable seconds, nothing. Then Lily's chest hitched, a raspy cough tore through her, and her eyes flew open. "Daddy. I'm here, baby." Leo crushed her against his chest, shoulders shaking. Lily reached a small hand toward Beatrice. "I'm right here, sweet girl. You're safe." Leo stood, lifting his daughter, then turned and offered Beatrice his hand, something no one in that house had ever done. She took it, and he pulled her up with startling ease. "Matteo," Leo said, voice cold again. "Take Victoria to the South Side warehouse. Tie her in the freezer unit. I'll deal with her once my daughter's asleep." Victoria's screams echoed through the mansion and then cut off as the doors closed behind her. 2 hours later, a syndicate doctor had treated Lily and given her a mild sedative. Leo sat by her bed until she slept. Beatrice cleaned herself up, bandaged her cheek, and waited in her room, certain she was about to be fired, or worse, for breaking into the office, using the emergency phone, failing to stop Victoria in the first place. A guard knocked. "Mr. Rossi wants you in his study." She walked down expecting the end. The study door hung shattered off its hinges, splinters across the rug, evidence of exactly how much force it had taken to break it. Leo sat behind his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, 2 glasses of bourbon poured. "Sit," he said. "Mr. Rossi, I'm sorry about the door. I shouldn't have touched the phone. If you want me gone, I understand, just find someone kind for Lily." "Sit down, Beatrice." He pushed a glass toward her. "Do you know what that door is made of?" "Solid reinforced oak. My men use a battering ram for doors like that." "You went through it with your shoulder." "I threw my weight into it," she said, looking down. "Guess it's the one time being this size helped." Leo set his glass down hard. "Do not insult yourself in my presence. The woman who broke that door, who defied my fiancé, who held my dying daughter in the dark while bleeding, that woman is not a punchline. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "Victoria wasn't just a socialite," he continued. "Her father controls the East Coast shipping ports, marrying her secured a supply line. What I didn't know was that she'd struck a deal with the Moretti family, my rivals. Her real plan was to slowly break my daughter and push me out. Today wasn't an accident. It was a test to see how long it would take Lily to suffocate." Beatrice's hands flew to her mouth. "If you hadn't called," Leo said, standing, walking around the desk, "I'd have come home tomorrow to a dead child and a grieving fiancé playing the perfect victim." He stopped in front of her, reached out, and gently brushed the edge of her bandage. "You bled for my blood. That kind of loyalty is rarer than gold. I just love her, Mr. Rossi. I know you do. Which is why, effective immediately, you're no longer a maid in this house. You'll be Lily's official guardian and head of the household staff. A lieutenant's salary. A suite next to Lily's. You'll never scrub another floor here again." She stared at him, stunned. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." "Yes." That night, in the freezing South Side warehouse, Leo confronted Victoria, tied to a chair among hanging sides of beef. Her father, he told her, was already cutting ties to save his own empire now that her deal with the Morettis was exposed. She'd force a call to Carlo Moretti, telling him the security grid was down, walking his men straight into a trap. Back at the estate, Beatrice settled into her new suite, larger than any home she'd ever had, and found it stocked with clothes tailored to her size, silk pajamas that fit her for the first time in her life. Lily padded in from a nightmare and climbed into her bed. Beatrice wrapped her arms around the girl and both drifted to sleep. At 4 a.m, Leo appeared in the doorway, exhausted, smelling of cold air and gunpowder. "The Moretti threats handled," he said quietly, sitting on the edge of the bed. "The estate secure." He looked at her a long moment. "I've spent my life around people starved for power, for money, for the right shape. You're not like that. You're warm. You take up space, Beatrice, and you deserve every inch of it. Don't ever shrink in my house again. Mr. Rossi." "Leo," he corrected, leaning close. "To the world, I'm Don Rossi. To you, I'm Leo." He kissed her forehead and left her to rest. Over the following months, Victoria vanished from Chicago society, officially relocated to Europe while her father's shipping empire was absorbed into the Rossi family. The Morettis, crippled by their failed ambush, were forced into an embarrassing peace. Beatrice took over the household with quiet, unshakable authority. The staff who once ignored her now answered to her without question. Lily's asthma attack stopped entirely. The mute, frightened child became a laughing girl trailing flour and mud through the halls behind her. Between Beatrice and Leo, something slow and steady caught fire. He courted her with devotion rather than spectacle, tailored gowns in emerald and sapphire that fit her curves perfectly, and a fierce, unapologetic appreciation that undid years of shame. The test came that December, at the annual Syndicate Gala. Hundreds of the country's most dangerous families gathered at the Rossi estate. Rumors about Leo's new woman had circulated for months, and rival families arrived expecting to mock a servant. When the doors opened, the room went silent. Leo walked in beside Beatrice, who wore a midnight velvet gown, the Rossi family diamonds at her throat, her chin high, the faint scar on her cheek only adding to her presence. A rival boss from New York sneered as he approached. "Leo, I heard you made staffing changes. Bringing the kitchen help to the head table now?" The room tensed, hands drifting toward hidden weapons. But Beatrice only smiled, calm and cutting. "We did make changes. We found the previous management lacking in both loyalty and survival instincts. Mind your own house, before you find your foundation crumbling under your own arrogance. I'd hate for you to suffer an unexpected freeze." The reference to Victoria's fate landed perfectly. The man paled, bowed slightly, and backed away. Leo pulled Beatrice against his side, hand resting on her waist. "Have I told you how breathtaking you are tonight?" "You might have mentioned it," she said, watching Lily wave from the balcony above, safe and smiling. Beatrice had started as a ghost, an invisible maid meant to scrub floors and swallow the world's cruelty. She had thrown her body against a locked door, picked up a forbidden phone, and demanded the devil himself come home. In doing that, she hadn't just saved a little girl. She'd conquered a king, dismantled a cartel, and claimed her place. And as she lifted a glass of champagne to a room full of men who now feared her, she knew she would never shrink again.